The Voice of Medicine. Gedanken, Geschichten und Talks aus der faszinierenden Welt der Medizin. Denn wir bringen sie an den Puls. Präsentiert von Radiolutions.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of The Voice of Medicine. Today with me, Michal. I have a very special guest today from the UK. He is the founder of GCR, an established speaker worldwide, and owner of 2 dental clinics, and definitely a man who is changing, or let's say transforming, medicine for the best. Daniel Coulton Shaw. I'm going to talk with Daniel today about topics such as transparency in healthcare, medical tourism, and building of reputation for healthcare institutions. Daniel, perhaps we can start right off with the first question. I would be very interested in the reasons for medical tourism. So why do people travel sometimes, thousands of miles to get healthcare? What are the reasons for medical tourism?
Price. It's a price-driven equation that usually the treatments might be too expensive in their local region and they travel abroad for a cheaper treatment. The second would be proximity. So maybe there's a long waiting time or simply not the availability of a certain type of treatment in their local region, so they travel abroad for that. And the third reason for traveling is the opposite of price, is for quality. There are many patients, believe it or not, that are willing to travel abroad and pay 10 times as much because they believe that the apparent quality of medicine that they would receive in another country is better. So I believe there's 3 major deciding factors for any, or what I call a medical traveler.
Those are definitely some valid reasons for people to leave their country and going and getting Medicare somewhere else. What I also would like to know from your perspective, with all your experiences, what can the clinics and hospitals, around the world actually do actively to attract more patients from the international background?
So medical clinics, depending on what type of patients they're trying to attract, they have many different strategies about reaching those patients. I know in Switzerland there are clinics and hospitals that focus simply on networking. It's all offline. It's simply on networking and deals with companies and high-income individuals in other countries. And on the other hand, you have very local to me is this situation in Hungary, where they offer low-cost dental treatment, where they attract British patients, usually by the internet or by magazine or newspaper advertisements on the radio, to bring patients abroad to them.
So depending on the country and I would say the field of medicine or the specialization in the medicine, the clinics use different type of communication channels around this, right? Did I get it right?
Certainly, but I don't like to put every single country in a box, because I know that Switzerland, offers not only high-level treatments, but believe it or not, there are people traveling to Switzerland for cheaper healthcare.
Really? Okay.
Yes, it's very very interesting to find out. Also, the largest medical tourism countries in the world, so inbound medical travelers, are the USA and the UK. There's massive amounts of people actually traveling there for cheaper or better healthcare, whereas very often the general population would think that people are leaving the US and the UK for healthcare, outside of their own country, which is happening, but at a smaller scale of the amount of patients that are actually coming into those countries.
All right. Now, in your experience, what are the 3, I would say, key points or the 3 learnings which you made over the course of your work with hospitals and clinics? Where do they make the biggest mistakes in attracting international patients?
Okay. So the biggest thing that I've certainly seen is that they think that the expertise available in their hospital or clinic is their number one deciding factor. And we've done research with I think the last research we did with that was 226 medical clinics. We asked them the same question: what do you consider the most important factor in your medical clinic? And they said expertise. And the second thing that they mentioned was the technology available. And we asked the same question to over 12,000 patients worldwide, and they actually offered the opposite thing. The opposite answer for what's most important to them was the actual expected outcome of treatment and the services available in the hospital or clinic. Those are the most important factors. They went before the expertise or the technology available, and that was across the board, not only for small level treatments like laser eye surgery or dentistry, but right up to oncology cases, cardiology cases, orthopedic surgery. So that was a very interesting learning.
This certainly is an eye-opener to me. So the patients really mostly care about if they're, indeed going to get better after a treatment. And the second thing was the services in the hospital. What do you mean by that? I mean,
services available. I mean, so medical. It's hard to group it, but medical and non-medical services.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, non-medical services would be help with the flights, arranging the accommodation, picking them up from the airport, having some type of patient coordinator or manager to look after them and to take care of the whole process in their own language, documentation in the language that the patient understands. And on the second side, with the medical services, so, of course, if you go to visit a furniture developer that focuses on chairs,
mm-hmm.
he will, of course, offer you chairs, even though you might actually need or want a table.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar with hospitals and clinics. If they don't have enough specializations available, so the service is available across the whole board, and they focus just on one medical specialization, that's a problem for the patient. The doctor may think, he's the best in that what he does, and he will offer that treatment. But for the patient, the best option, of course, is to go somewhere where the best treatment, the best service for that patient will be given, if you know what I mean. So if there's 10 different operation types that could solve the patient's problem, they want the one that's best for them, not the one that's easiest for the doctor or the hospital to perform.
Okay, so they really want to have, even in one particular field, a number of alternatives, so they have the feeling that they have a choice in these things.
Exactly.
Okay. And so if I understood correctly, it's very important for clinics to make sure that their patients are pampered.
Yeah, and that takes a lot more effort than many clinics actually realize. So
mm-hmm.
I've had a number of clinics that say, okay, we'll build a website in English, or we'll build a website in the German language or in Arabic, and the patients will come. It doesn't work like that. There's a whole new level of service
mm-hmm.
they need to implement and provide for them to attract and get results from those patients, and have those patients turn into ambassadors to promote their hospital or clinic further. For example, I have a very small clinic here in Slovakia, so I employ about 45 people altogether. But I would say that 15 of those people are completely focused on providing service. They're non-medical
mm-hmm.
staff,
mm-hmm.
so drivers, patient managers, extra receptionists to make our patients cups of tea, to look after them, organize accommodation for them, just to deal with emails and like a little call center.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Non-medical staff, there's like 15 people out of 45, so 1/3. And I've been just recently, for a good example, in Turkey, hair transplant clinic. I've just visited them. They're 2/3 non-medical staff.
Okay, wow.
2/3 of the patient of their team is simply to take care of the patients.
So the care for the patients starts basically the moment that the patients decide to come to your clinic, and let's say not even enters the doorstep, but wants to come to you. So you have a driver picking him up and everything. So it all begins with the decision, I want to go to your clinic. That's where your service starts.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. You also done a lot of, as you said, research on this, and you made the patient-reported outcome measurement, shortly PROM.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, like I said a little bit earlier, the patient is more focused not on what the doctor does to the patient, but what the doctor will do for the patient.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very simply represented in the outcomes of the hospital or clinic. So with the age of digitalization, hospitals and clinics are finding it easier and easier today to track the outcomes of treatments, the results of treatment which has been done with their patients, and patients are finding it a lot easier to report that data back to the hospitals or clinics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I really do believe that we've gone from an age, 20,000 years ago, we prayed to the doctor, we prayed to the gods to heal our medical situation.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, we chose, it became the era of the doctors. We prayed to the gods and we looked to a doctor to heal our problems. And over the past 20 years, right now, we've been looking to data as well. So in addition to praying and visiting doctors to solve our medical situation, so we look to Google, and I believe that in the future, we will look to pay to the outcomes of treatment, and doctors worldwide and clinics worldwide will be paid according to the results they're able to provide for patients and treatments. So I built a software with GCR to help patients report and clinics collect that data very simply over time. For example, a good example is with my own clinic. I can, put on my website, we are the best clinic in Central Europe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Change your teeth, then come to us.
Well, this is what a lot of clinics or hospitals actually do. This is the classic marketing. We say we're the best, we leave it there, and people will come.
Yeah, exactly. But they can't support it with data. Patients in the future will look to the data to compare the outcomes between hospitals and clinics. And it's already happened when we choose a bank or we choose a car or restaurants or a holiday. Even when we choose like a girlfriend or boyfriend, we might be looking on the internet. We're looking at data to support the facts. And this will happen in healthcare and education. Unfortunately, these are the last sectors, apart from religion, I guess, where data will have its massive impact. But already in the US and the UK, insurance companies are choosing the clinics and hospitals they work with simply based on the outcomes that hospital or clinic can demonstrate. It's not very common, of course, in Europe yet, but it'll be here shortly.
So you have mentioned the GCR. I think it's important to stop here for a second and explain to our listeners a little bit. So GCR is a web-based platform where, and now you have to correct me if I got this wrong, but you basically type in the name of a clinic and it spits you out sort of a review and some data about this clinic, maybe perhaps some follow-ups on patients. Is that the sort of thing? Or I think it's much more complex than that, but...
in a nutshell, it's like the TripAdvisor of medical clinics.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to explain it. And it started years ago when a patient called my clinic from the UK. And I said, yes, come to my clinic. I'm sure we're cheaper and better than your own local dentist. And he laughed. He said, how do you know the quality level of my own dentist and his prices and the work that he's done? You just can't say that. And I completely then agreed, of course. It was just...
He called you on the bluff, so to say, huh?
Yeah, it was a marketing statement out of the blue. And I thought, yeah, that's true. So what I will do, I will get a spreadsheet out and I will compare exactly the expertise, the facilities, the services and the reviews of that clinic against my own. So that I can, in truth, tell him exactly how we stand. And I actually sent them this report to the clinic I was assessing in the UK. I said, look, I've assessed your clinic because a patient was choosing between my clinic and yours. These are the results. And we were both very similar in my score. And he shared this with another clinic and another clinic. And we built up a small database of clinics rating each other just internally so we could learn from each other. And then I presented this data at a startup conference here in Slovakia. It was picked up by some guys from Google, and we got involved in building what we call the global clinic rating. At that time, it was the Global Clinic Index. And we tried to rate on a simple scale of 1 to 5, the services, the expertise, the facilities, and the patient outcomes of every clinic or hospital we could get into our system. And we ended up with 500,000 clinics and hospitals
Wow.
worldwide.
Okay.
Some of them were very passive. They just didn't use that data, but some were very active. They used this data to learn from their competition, to improve processes. And we developed from that an accreditation system, best practices of hospitals and clinics in the world. We could help smaller clinics and clinics that wanted to be better implement those best practices. So we did that through accreditation, but this is the big learning. I learned that over time, I can't rely on clinics and hospitals to give me transparent data on the facilities, the expertise, and the services and the patient feedback available. We realized that we can't rely on the clinics to give us updated data. And that's transparent. Some of the hospitals and clinics gave us actually fake data.
Of course, yeah.
It got indexed simply to appear higher than others.
Yeah.
So very recently, then we looked more and more into working with organizations worldwide that work with PROMs, these patient-reported outcome metrics or outcome measurement. And the whole index is now turning more and more that it will be an index of clinics ranked according to the outcomes they provide for patients. And we ask the patients to give the scores on the treatments which they have.
So you're using something more of objective or neutral.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
It was a big encouragement for us when Google started to show our scores in Google Maps. Whenever you would look for a clinic on a map, it would also show its GCR score.
Wow, okay.
So this was a big thing that pushed us forward, showed us, I guess, that we're on the right path with this, the right way of thinking of how things will go, because reviews on restaurants and hospitals and businesses are still very subjective. So
yes, of course. You're also running you're also running against the danger that someone who simply doesn't want to, doesn't like you, or perhaps wants to sabotage your business, is going to write some bad reviews, which you then have to deal with.
So it's either Dr. Peter was super or Dr. Peter was terrible.
Yeah.
And you get this data. Maybe it would work for if you choose a bad heart surgeon based on that data. There's a high risk factor. Here are the three factors that I look at usually as improvement to life, functionality. So is the patient able to function as before after treatment, and if there's any treatment-related pain. Of course, that differs in types of medical specializations. So an example from dentistry would be does the patient have any treatment-related pain after surgery? Are they able to eat? So that's the function. Can they eat normally? And the improvement to life is, can they smile confidently? And I track that 2 days, 2 months, half a year, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years after treatment. And with IVF situations or for fertility, so I would look if there's been a pregnancy. Has it been then a healthy pregnancy? Was the baby not lost at all? And then has a healthy child been born? And orthopedics, is there any treatment-related pain? Can the patient walk? And then more importantly, improvement to life. Can the patient lift his shopping, walk up and down stairs? Can they play sports as they did before? So these are more objective results than actual basic reviews. Like I said, Dr. Peter was super, go there, or Dr. Peter was bad. I'll be able to track after thousands of patients if they actually brought benefits to patients over time.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much for providing me with some of the examples of these items. Did you actually work with any experts on this from health psychology or something? Because it sounds like you used very interesting, how should I say, measures of the satisfaction of the patient satisfaction. So I don't know how you got these things. Like who was on your team?
So there's an organization called ICHCOM, which is the International Consortium of Healthcare Outcome Measurement.
Okay.
So they have a standardized outcome collection system that's free of charge that they encourage hospitals and clinics to implement themselves. So it's very much based on that, and there was even Nobel Prize winners in that building their outcome measurement system. There's no standardized software that allows clinics and hospitals around the world to collect that data. So that's one thing we're solving. And the other thing is that's a lot of that outcome data is something that's very interesting to doctors, but patients need it to be simplified. That's one of the reasons with our cooperation with Google and their simple review 5-star system, we simplified as much as possible the outcome measurements. So that patients in any language, in any culture or location of the world can very quickly compare within seconds which hospital clinic would be right for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we already talked a little bit about the fact that some of the hospitals and clinics are very active. They use the data. Some of them are rather passive or even try to misuse this tool. What would you say? What is the general reaction of this new development? You bringing up this new tool, trying to bring a little bit more transparency into healthcare. Was there some backlash from some people, or were they thrilled?
Certainly, if they score highly or higher than they expected,
Mm-hmm.
they are usually very happy. If it's lower, of course, the ego comes in there.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them are quite humble and they look to improve. They just say, okay, where do we need to improve so we can improve our score? And it has a direct result. If they can improve their score, it actually has an influence on their patients. So better treatments provided, so better results. The reputation of the clinic gets stronger, and actual revenue over time for the whole hospital or clinic gets stronger, of course. More patients are satisfied with a higher level of service provided. But on the other hand, if they are not willing, they just think, that I'm trying to do my best here, and the score's low, and I don't care what you say. I'm going to continue the way I've been going. That's the sad part. That's the backlash that we get sometimes. But our goal is to improve healthcare, the level of healthcare provided worldwide for all.
Mm-hmm.
That's our unique goal. So anything that doesn't really fit with that goal, we have to, push aside and keep encouraging clinics that want to improve healthcare.
Sure. Have you realized any difference when you're talking, either when you have your speeches abroad, or when you're actually consulting the clinics and hospital? Is there any difference when you talk to the medical staff, so the MDs, and then when you talk to the executives, so the executive board, the HR department, etc.? Is there a difference between how they experience this with you, or perhaps in views, etc.?
Certainly. So the doctors obviously view this tool as a way for them to collect, the results of the treatments which they've done, and they love it. But something they're missing. To do it manually, to call up every patient years after treatment, takes a lot of time and of course resources. So it solves that problem for them. But the marketing teams and those in charge of the money of the hospital, they see it simply as a marketing tool. The score's not high for them, they don't want to use it. If they score highly, of course, they will use it across all their marketing, which they do to attract new patients.
I get it. Another thing I wanted to ask you, but the score is constantly changing, right? So it's basically if a clinic is not doing so well for half a year, the score is gonna change, so decrease in this case.
Exactly.
Okay. Another topic I wanted to talk to you about, this really caught my attention. In one of your talks, you were talking about the 4 pillars of clinical excellence. So what are these 4 pillars of clinical excellence? And is it kind of like a model of yours, or is it just a good catchphrase?
Yeah. So we came up with this initial market research that we did about what's most important to patients and clinics. We came up, these 4 themes always were reoccurring: the expertise available, the hospital or clinic, the facilities available, so medical and non-medical, the services available, medical and non-medical, and then the reviews of the clinic at the beginning, which we recently overturned towards the outcomes. The whole trend of the internet is moving away from reviews of businesses to actual outcomes. So we're moving. Those are the 4 pillars. And whenever I do like a consultation session with a hospital clinic, I will look at those 4 pillars. And for example, which is very common in where you are around Switzerland, the level of expertise and facilities available are very high. Whereas the other hand, they may be very weak on the services, on the patient feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So I obviously encourage them to then market their strengths. So if they do have fantastic expertise and technology available, let them market that and work on their weaknesses. And other clinics have exactly the opposite. Great feedback, great services, but expertise not so high and technology not so high for the facilities. So they can market the other areas. So it's more of a clinic can then simply work out what are their real strengths in the eyes of a patient, and what are their weaknesses, and work on use both those metrics.
Okay.
And they make up the GCR score, the four things. So you can actually in the GCR compare hospitals and clinics simply within those metrics. So if you want to know which clinic has the highest level of technology within a particular country, you can simply filter by that. Or the best services, you're looking for the ultra VIP hospital or clinic, then you would just simply search by the services.
Okay. Now, perhaps a little bit more critical question, and I'm sure you've heard this one before. So there is a couple of people in the healthcare market who are regularly complaining about the fact that, let's say, a lot of patients go to Eastern Europe, countries like Slovakia, Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, etc., to get certain procedures done just because of the fact that they are cheaper. So they're, so to say, they're accusing, certain countries' healthcare providers of lowballing the whole industry. What's your take on this?
Yeah, this is, it's always been happening. I mean, people will travel, and now this information is more transparent. Through the internet, we can actually now fairly check prices and cross-check them across borders. So I'm certainly not against it, and I'm all for this transparency of price. And as I said at the beginning, the inbound markets to countries that are very expensive is actually higher than those outgoing for cheaper. So for those hospitals and clinics that are complaining, they should be focusing on promoting their strengths so that they can bring in the more affluent patients that can afford those treatments. I mean, in the supermarket, of course, there's a supermarket for people who are looking for low-cost food.
Yeah.
And there are supermarkets for those who are looking, for the best quality produce available. And that's everywhere. And that will happen in healthcare. The only thing is healthcare is a higher ticket item. If some treatments are costing 20,000, 25,000, you really would travel a further distance if you believe the quality or the price difference was enough. GCR is a one way to display that price or quality difference to the patients. It's not able to be done before. This quality measurement is very hard to distinguish, but we're getting there.
Okay. Do you believe that, in the future, a sort of a systematic or package approach is going to be very, very popular? So let's say people come to and I have seen this over and over, that you have a sort of a spa or a resort where you get everything from your teeth bleached to, the chief medical officer of orthopedics is going to look at you and do a checkup on you. Do you think this is somewhere where we're moving? It's kind of like a system approach that you come, you get everything done, and you go back home after, 2 weeks, sort of like a medical holiday?
Yeah. This is a funny question because my first company, and the company name of my clinic is called Dental Holiday. And I live in a spa town because I thought we could do dentistry and, my patients will come and they will go in the spa.
Yeah.
Whatever. And it just didn't work like that. And it still doesn't. 10 years later, patients come for the treatment. Treatment is first and foremost. Everything else around it is just is a little bit of a benefit extra. But if you're going on a major surgery, I mean, the factor is the quality first. And a funny thing with dentistry, I have a lot of UK patients. So my UK male patients, they come and they ask about the girls in Slovakia. They're not interested.
Okay.
More, where are the ladies? And the women, they ask, more about where are the shops.
Okay.
It's quite funny. We have such beauty here in Slovakia and in Austria, in this part of the world. Mountains, lakes, rivers, castles, all those fantastic things. But it doesn't. The UK population, at least the ones that we treat, that doesn't interest them. And I work similarly with Croatia. A lot of Croatian clinics, and they have a wonderful coastline. Lovely sites there as well, but simply the patients come in and out for treatment only. They're not staying to go and sit on the beach or take a boat ride or see a castle or something.
And this is something what I always like to ask, people on our show. So if you had to give one valuable advice to the healthcare providers out there right now, which would really, first of all, help them to have or build up better reputation in the future, but also help their patients, what would you tell them?
I would, and you answered the question. You answered the question in your question with reputation. I believe that reputation is the golden bullet of success for any business. So we're here in the internet age with social media and lots of different things always happening in healthcare. But if your reputation remains strong, you're always able to build and attract more patients and increase the level of quality you provide. So reputation is the first thing for me. I believe you should analyze your reputation. Think about the level of expertise, services, facilities, and patient feedback in your clinic against another, and work out how you believe that your reputation stands against other clinics in your area using that tool. And then imagine it from the point of view of a patient who doesn't know you, doesn't know any clinics in your area. From the outside, at your hospital or clinic, how would they see the reputation? How would they analyze it? Reputation is the key for everything. If that's not standing and the reputation is strong, it can take a war. A war can come, like has happened in Lebanon. You've got cultural differences, around Turkey and Egypt, the problems there. But still, I have clinics and hospitals that attract more and more patients, even through those difficulties, simply because of the reputation they've been building. Also, you might have inflation of prices dramatically in a country, and it's becoming more and more expensive for you to treat patients. But simply, if the reputation is strong enough, you'll ride that out. And I had a very unique situation happen to me that there was this volcano in Iceland that erupted, and it stopped the flights coming from the UK. I don't know if you remember that. Flights in Europe stopped, and my own clinic is fully dependent on the flights. So we sat in an empty clinic for that week, no patients at all, and we wondered, what's happening to us. We had no local reputation built. And from that day onwards, we focused very much on building a local reputation. So if a similar situation happened unexpectedly, we can still win. And I think I covered with that whatever comes, whether it be a political or cultural or a medical issue in the clinic or inflation in prices in the country, reputation can outride all those things. It doesn't matter if you have great AdWords or fantastic website or a good local reputation. I believe that reputation, as much as possible, you should focus on that first. So Mayo Clinic, for example, in the US, they will stand whatever happens with Trump, even if there was a war with the US and China or whatever.
Okay.
They will still have bucket loads of patients because of the reputation they built over time. That's the key. The reputation is really the key for any medical business or clinic, hospital for sure.
I think this was a beautiful close-up and a very important message for the hospitals and clinics to take home. This was The Voice of Medicine with me, Michal. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
The Voice of Medicine. Gedanken, Geschichten und Talks aus der faszinierenden Welt der Medizin. Denn wir bringen sie an den Puls. Präsentiert von Radiolutions.